Hello, my name is Piyush Marmat, an undergraduate student of Integrated Masters in Physics at Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. This video presentation is prepared with the motive of assignment task for PHM 314 course. A short discussion on semiconductor memories in Intel 8085 microprocessor is reviewed here. We will see the architecture and different types of memories in a microprocessor citing the Intel 8085 microprocessor. Let's get started. And first, let us get briefly introduce ourselves with our central device, that is the 8085 microprocessor. It's an 8-bit microprocessor developed by Intel and it's a von Neumann design. Let us see the basic components. The microprocessor is a programmable device and has a set of instructions stored in a memory. This set of instructions are used by it to manipulate data and to communicate with the peripherals, that is the input and output devices. The green box that you can see on the screen can be considered our 8085 microprocessor. The memory elements store the binary data and predefined instructions for the microprocessor. As shown on the screen, the microprocessor uses address buses to send the address of memory register and uses the data bus and control bus to read or write on the register. Memory can be considered as a circuit that can store binary information, that is bits. High and low voltage levels or capacitive charge represent this binary 1 and 0. Therefore, flip-flops and latches are a basic element of memory, or they can be considered as a memory storage device. The following figures the figure on the left side of the screen shows an input data shows a D flip-flop. The D in shows the input data bit and in enable are shown. The stored bit is available at the output data end D out. To avoid unintentional changes in the input and control the availability of output, we can use tri-state buffers on the latches and shown on the right hand side of the screen. We can write into the latch by enabling the input buffer and read from it by enabling the output buffer. Write signal as WR and read signal as RD. These are active low signals, which means that when they are logically low, the buffer will be activated. These latches can be called as memory cells. Combining 4 such latches, we get a register. Let us see what this means. This figure on the upper side of the screen shows 4 such cells or latches grouped together. This is a register which has 4 input lines and 4 output lines and therefore can store 4 bits, which is also known as a nibble. This is a 1x4 bit memory, one register with 4 IO lines. IO means input and output here. The bottom two diagram shows us a block diagram of this same 1x4 bit register. Four registers with 8 cells or an 8-bit memory word are arranged in a sequence. To write into or read from any one of the registers, a specific register should be identified or enabled. This is a simple decoding function which can be performed by a 2 to 4 decoder. However, two more input lines A1 and A0 called address lines are required to the decoder. These two input lines can have 4 different combinations with 10, 11, 01 and 00, which are shown on the screen in the left hand side figure. Each combination can identify or enable one of the registers named as register 3, 2, 1 or 0. Thus enable signal of a flip-flop in figure which is shown on the previous slide here. Therefore, this enable signal is replaced by 2 address lines in this figure. This figure illustrates that we can make an 8-bit word memory from smaller word size chips. But how are we gonna deal with the problem when there are multiple chips available to us? Can we use it? Can this be something that we can make use of and try it to be more flexible? Yes, we can. First of the all, we should see that if there are 4 registers available to us, we need 2 address lines, and if there are 8 registers, we need 3 address lines, and if there are 16 registers, we need 4 address lines. So in this way, we can say for 2 to the power n registers, we need n address lines. As I talked about multiple chips in use, let's say 2 chips with 4 registers each, with four registers each, and total therefore we have 8 registers. That means we need 3 address lines, but we have to reserve one line to select between these 2 chips. This additional signal is called chip select, denoted as CS bar and A2 within an inverter. The following figure, which is shown on the screen, shows us 2 memory chips with 4 address lines on where when A1 and A0 are the address lines for each of the memory chips, and the address line A2 works as a chip select line. When A2 is low, that is 0, chip M1, the left side chip, is selected. When A2 is high, that is 1, chip M2, which is on the right in the figure, is selected. Using multiple chips gives us more flexibility in chip design. After reviewing the above explanations, we can summarize the requirements of a memory chip. Then we are able to build a model and match the requirements with the microprocessor bus concepts. A memory chip requires address lines to identify a memory register. The number of address lines required is determined by the number of registers in a chip that we have seen in the previous slides. Thus, for to the power n registers, we need n address lines. The 8085 microprocessor has 16 address lines, which means it has 2 to the power 16 registers. A memory chip requires a chip select line to enable the chip, as we have seen in the previous slide. The remaining address lines can be connected to CS signal through an interfacing logic. Address lines connected to the chip select and the address lines connected to the address lines of the memory chip select the register, and thus the memory address of a register is determined by the logic levels of all address lines, including the address lines of the chip select also. The control signal read RD enables the output buffer, and data from the selected register are made available on the output lines. Similarly, the control signal write WR enables the input buffer, in data on the input lines are written into memory cells. The microprocessor can use its memory write and memory read control signals to enable the buffers and data bus to transport the content of the selected registers between the microprocessor and memory. But memory, now we should switch to memory and instruction fetch. Memory's prime function is nothing but to store instructions and data, and to provide that the information to the MPU, that is a microprocessing unit, whenever it's required. How the MPU requests information, let us see in this slide. If you can see the figure on the screen, the instruction code 01001111, that is 4F in hexadecimal, is stored in memory location 2005 that we can see on this screen. To fetch the instruction located in memory location 2005H, following steps are performed. The program counter places the 16-bit address 2005H of the memory location on the address bus. The control unit sends the memory read control signal MEMR active low to enable the output buffer of the memory chip. The instructions 4FH stored in the memory location is placed on the data bus and transferred. That means copied to the instruction decoder of the microprocessor. The instruction is decoded and executed according to the binary pattern of the instruction. Now let us see the main part of this presentation, that is memory classification. Memory can be classified into two groups, which is shown on the screen in the chart. Prime memory, which is also called system memory or main memory, and the other one is storage memory. Read and write memory and ROMs are example of prime memory. The microprocessor uses this kind of memory in executing and storing programs. Therefore, a fast response from this memory type is needed to keep up with the execution speed of the microprocessor. This should be, therefore, random access memory. That means the microprocessor should be able to access information from any registers with the same speed independent of its location on the chip. The other part is the storage memory, which is shown on the right. It is used to store programs and results after the completion of the execution of the program. This is a non-volatile memory, that is, information will remain intact even if the system is turned off. Microprocessor can't directly execute or process programs stored in the storage memory. Rather, they need to be copied in the read and write memory, that is prime memory, first. Thus, the size of prime memory determines how large a program the system can process. However, the size of storage memory depends on the number of available disks or magnetic tapes or other storage devices. In the figure, if you see in the bottom left corner of the chart, you see the read and write memory, the RWM, is further divided into two classes, that is static write and read memory and dynamic read and write memory. Let us briefly discuss on this two again. Read and write memory, that is read write memory, which is also called RAM, which is another popular name for it. The microprocessor can write into a read from this memory, popularly known as RAM. This memory is volatile and which is further divided into two parts. The static RAM, the static read and write memory. This memory is made up of flip-flops and it stores the bit as a voltage. Each memory cells requires start. The read and write memory, which is shown on the left hand side of this chart, can be further divided into the two parts: the static and read and write memory and dynamic read and write memory. In the static read and write memory, the memory is made up of flip-flops and stores the bit as a voltage. Each memory cells requires 6 transistors. Therefore, the memory chip has low density but high speed. This is comparatively more expensive and more power consuming than the dynamic RAM, which we will discuss in the next part. In high speed processors, that is Intel 486 and Pentium, static RAM is known as a cache memory, which is included on the processor chip for increasing the performance of the programs. Coming to the dynamic read and memory, which is also called DRAM, this memory is made up of MOS transistors. That means metal oxide semiconductor transistors, gates, and it stores the bit as a charge. It has high density and low power consumption and it's cheaper than the static memory, that is SRAM. The disadvantage is that charge leaks and so the stored information is required to be refreshed, that is read and write again every few milliseconds, which requires external circuitry. It is generally economical to use DRAM when system memory size is at least 8K. For smaller systems, the SRAM, that is static RAM, is appropriate. We have discussed read and write memory. Let us switch to the other side of other type of the prime memory known as read-only memory. This is non-volatile memory and it retains the stored information even if the power of the system is turned off. Programs and data, that is, need not to be altered, are stored in this kind of memory. Further classification of this memory, that is ROM, gives us erasable memory and permanent memory, which are again further classified as EPROM, double EPROM, and masked ROMs and PROMs. We will discuss on this various types of ROMs one by one. But before going to that, we should discuss the concept of ROM. It can be the concept of ROM or the structure or the architecture can be explained with diodes arranged in a matrix format, which is shown on the screen right now. The horizontal lines are connected to vertical lines only through the diodes. They are not connected to where they appear to cross in this diagram. Each of the 8 horizontal rows can be viewed as a register with binary addresses ranging from 000 to 111. Information is stored by a diode in the registers. The presence of a diode stores 1 and its absence stores 0. When a register is selected, the voltage of that line goes high and the output lines where diodes are connected also go high. For example, when the memory register 111 is selected, the data type 0, 111, 100 or 78 in hexadecimal can be read at the data lines D7 or to D0. The diode representation is a simplified version of the actual MOSFET memory cell. That means in the place of diodes, the ROM contains MOSFETs. The manufacturer designs the MOSFET in the matrix according to the information to be stored. Therefore, information is permanently recorded in the ROM. Coming to the types of the ROMs, we have masked ROMs, PROMs, EPROMs, and double EPROMs, and also flash memory. Let us cover all this one by one. First one is masked ROM. In this ROM, a bit pattern is permanently stored by the masking and metallization process. The other one is PROM, which is also called as programmable ROM. Although ROMs are stored as described as are volatile, non-volatile memory, but they are for some time can be programmed. This memory has, when we are talking about the programmable ROM, we see that the memory has a nichrome or polysilicon wires arranged in a matrix. These wires can be functionally viewed as diodes or fuses. This memory can be programmed by the user with a special PROM programmer that selectively burns the fuses according to the bit pattern to be stored. The process is called burning the PROM, and the information stored is permanent. The other one is EPROM, which is also called electrically programmable ROM. This memory stores a bit by changing the floating gate of a field effect transistor. Information is stored by using an EPROM programmer which applies the high voltage to change the gate. All the information can be erased by exposing the chip to ultraviolet light through its quartz window, and chip can be reprogrammed. This memory is ideally suited for product development, experimental projects, and college laboratories. But there are some disadvantages. It must be taken out of the circuit to erase it. The entire chip must be erased at once. The erasing process takes around 15 to 20 minutes. Therefore we have another variant of an EPROM, which is called electrically erasable programmable ROM. This memory is functionally similar to an EPROM, except that the data can be altered by using electrical signals at the register levels rather than erasing all the information at once. If double EPROM are used in the system, they can be updated from a central computer by using a remote link via telephone lines. Similarly, in a process control where timing information needs to be changed, it can be changed by sending electrical signals from a central place. This memory also includes a chip erase mode, whereby the entire chip can be erased in 10 milliseconds versus the 15 to 25 minutes in the case of EPROMs. But it is expensive. The other variant of this is flash memory, which is also getting popular. The major difference is in the eraser procedure. The double EPROMs can be erased at a registered level. These memory chips can be erased and programmed at least 1,000,000 times. but flash memory must be erased either in its entirety or at a sector, that is block level. In the microprocessor based products, ROMs are utilized in writing programs and data that is subject to change in read and write memory. When microcomputers are used for developing software or for learning purposes, programs are first written in read and write memory and then stored on a storage memory, such as cassette tapes or floppy disks, which come in the type of storage memory.